Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The tension in Genoa City was already palpable, simmering just beneath the surface, but no one, not even the most seasoned residents of Newman Enterprises or Chancellor Communications, could have anticipated the shock that was about to shake the city to its core. It was a sunny afternoon, deceptively calm outside, as the offices of Newman Enterprises hummed with their usual frenetic energy. Victoria Newman, impeccably dressed and radiating the composed confidence that she had built her life upon, was finishing up a series of meetings when an unexpected visitor arrived. Audra Charles, whose presence alone had been enough to ignite gossip and speculation throughout the corridors of Genoa City, walked in with an air of calm authority that immediately demanded attention. Victoria, never one to be caught off guard, raised a perfectly arched brow, but there was a flicker of something behind her eyes: curiosity, caution, maybe even suspicion. Audra's entrance was quiet yet commanding. She carried herself like someone who knew secrets that could unravel empires, someone whose very existence was a disruption waiting to happen. Claire Newman, Victoria's daughter and the epitome of youthful ambition mixed with vulnerability, was elsewhere at the time, blissfully unaware that her life was about to be upended in ways she could never have imagined. The conversation began politely enough, the exchange of pleasantries thinly veiling the weight that hung in the air, but Audra's tone hinted at far more than casual civility. She had come not to visit, not to make small talk, but to reveal a truth that would send shockwaves through the entire Newman family. Victoria, ever the careful strategist, tried to maintain her composure, yet even she could not entirely mask the rising tension, the subtle tightening of her jaw, the slight narrowing of her eyes. Audra's gaze, steady and unwavering, seemed to see straight through Victoria's carefully constructed walls. Then, as if waiting for the perfect moment, Audra delivered the revelation that would leave Victoria, and eventually Claire, reeling. She was, in fact, Claire's biological mother. The words seemed to hang in the air, reverberating in the cavernous space of Newman Enterprises as if the building itself were holding its breath. Victoria's initial reaction was a mixture of disbelief, denial, and a creeping fear that her carefully ordered world was about to collapse. How could this be? The very foundations of her identity as Claire's mother, as a woman in control of her family's destiny, were being questioned in a single, seismic statement. Audra, sensing the storm she had unleashed, remained composed, her expression unreadable but her eyes betraying a hint of empathy, or perhaps pride. She recounted the story with meticulous clarity, explaining the circumstances that had led her to give Claire up for adoption, the heartbreak she had endured in silence, and the years of watching from afar as her daughter grew under Victoria's loving but sometimes overbearing care. The revelations came fast and furious, each detail more staggering than the last. Audra had kept tabs on Claire throughout the years, attending events from a distance, ensuring she was safe, happy, and thriving, all while remaining in the shadows. The complexity of her motives, the depth of her sacrifice, and the courage it must have taken to remain silent weighed heavily on everyone present. Victoria, meanwhile, was struggling to process the flood of information. Her mind raced, flipping through every memory, every moment with Claire, every decision she had made as a mother. Was it possible that everything she had believed about her daughter's origins had been a lie? And if so, what did that mean for her own identity, for the bond she shared with Claire, for the life they had built together? The emotional turmoil was almost too much to bear, and for a brief moment, Victoria, the ever-resilient matriarch, faltered. But Audra was not finished. She spoke of her longing, her desire to connect, to finally meet the daughter she had given up so long ago, to explain herself, and perhaps to offer a chance for reconciliation. Her words, carefully measured yet charged with emotion, painted a picture of a woman torn between love and loss, between fear and hope. As Victoria absorbed these revelations, her initial shock began to morph into a complex web of emotions: anger at the secrecy, relief that Claire had been loved and cared for, and an undeniable curiosity about the woman who had sacrificed so much. The scene was charged, electric, as Victoria tried to process the enormity of what she had just learned. In the meantime, word of Audra's revelation had begun to spread like wildfire through Genoa City, and soon, allies and adversaries alike were weighing in, each adding their own interpretations, their own spin on the situation. At Newman Enterprises, whispered conversations erupted behind closed doors, speculation ran rampant, and social media exploded with rumors, theories, and anticipatory drama. Meanwhile, Claire herself, oblivious to the immediate storm, was going about her day, unaware that her world was about to be completely turned upside down. When Victoria finally reached her, she was still struggling to find the right words, the appropriate balance between protection, honesty, and honesty that might also preserve the delicate dynamics of their relationship. The confrontation was inevitable, a collision of past and present, of secrets and truths that could no longer remain hidden. Claire, hearing the words from her mother, was stunned into silence. The room seemed to contract around her as the truth settled in. The woman she had always known as her mother was not her biological parent. Emotions surged like a tidal wave: shock, confusion, betrayal, curiosity, and a reluctant fascination with the woman who had given her life before she had even known it. Audra, standing there with a mixture of pride and nervous vulnerability, extended her hand, a gesture of tentative connection and hope for acceptance. The tension was palpable, the emotional stakes sky high. In that moment, the complex interplay of love, identity, and family dynamics became a living, breathing entity, demanding attention, demanding reflection, and most importantly, demanding action. Over the following hours and days, conversations ensued, each one layered with emotional complexity, as the Newman family, and particularly Victoria, navigated the stormy waters of reconciliation, identity, and truth. Victoria, grappling with her own feelings of displacement and concern for Claire's emotional well-being, tried to balance honesty with compassion, ensuring that her daughter felt supported while also acknowledging the undeniable reality that her family structure had shifted in ways no one could have predicted. Claire, simultaneously confronting feelings of shock, curiosity, and an almost instinctual desire to understand the woman who had been watching her life unfold from afar, struggled to reconcile the duality of her maternal figures. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotional encounters, private conversations, and public speculation. Each meeting, each interaction, was charged with tension, layered with nuance, and fraught with the uncertainty of navigating a completely altered family landscape. Victoria and Audra, despite initial friction, began the painstaking process of building a tentative bridge, an understanding that, while tentative, offered hope for a future where honesty, love, and compassion might coexist. Meanwhile, Claire found herself oscillating between periods of introspection and bursts of emotional confrontation, grappling with questions that seemed impossible to answer. How does one reconcile love for the mother who raised you with curiosity and eventual love for the mother who gave you life? How does one navigate loyalty, identity, and familial bonds in the aftermath of such a revelation? Genoa City, as always, watched with rapt attention, drawn into the personal drama of the Newman family, each viewer empathizing with, judging, and speculating about the unfolding saga. Rumors spread like wildfire, alliances shifted, and tensions ran high as friends, rivals, and business associates weighed in on the implications of this stunning revelation. Audra, meanwhile, remained steadfast, determined to prove that her intentions were pure, that her desire to connect with Claire was motivated by love rather than personal gain, and that she was willing to weather the storm of skepticism, resentment, and emotional turbulence that inevitably accompanied such revelations. Victoria, for her part, faced the monumental task of reconciling the woman she had always known as the mother of her child with the biological truth that had now been thrust into the light. In the midst of all this, Claire herself became the emotional epicenter, navigating a sea of feelings, loyalties, and revelations that threatened to redefine her understanding of herself, her family, and her place in the world. The Newman estate, the offices, the social circles, and even the casual conversations of Genoa City became imbued with the reverberations of Audra's revelation, each interaction tinged with the lingering questions, emotional fallout, and potential for reconciliation that had now become central to the lives of Victoria, Claire, and Audra alike. Ultimately, the revelation of Audra as Claire's biological mother was more than just a dramatic twist. It was a seismic shift in the emotional and familial landscape of Genoa City, a catalyst for introspection, connection, conflict, and ultimately, the enduring drama that keeps viewers captivated. It underscored the fragile balance of secrets and truths, the power of love and sacrifice, and the enduring question of what it truly means to be a family. As the days and weeks unfolded, Victoria, Claire, and Audra were forced to navigate the delicate dance of past, present, and future, each moment fraught with tension, each conversation a test of trust, and each interaction a step toward understanding, forgiveness, and the possibility of forming a new, albeit complicated, family bond that could withstand the storms of life in Genoa City. The revelation of Audra Charles as Claire's biological mother rippled outward like a stone thrown into a still pond, touching every corner of the Newman family, every relationship Claire had ever known, and every hidden tension simmering beneath the surface of Genoa City. No one could predict the chaos that would ensue, nor the intensity of the emotions that would overwhelm the lives of those involved. For Victoria Newman, the initial shock gave way to a gnawing sense of vulnerability she had never allowed herself to feel. She had spent years being the perfect mother, controlling, protecting, and guiding Claire's every step. Now, she felt the fragile control she prided herself on slipping like sand through her fingers. Her mind raced with questions that had no easy answers. How would this affect Claire? Would her daughter feel betrayed, confused, or abandoned? Could Victoria maintain her place in Claire's life while navigating the presence of Audra, whose intentions were sincere yet entirely disruptive? Meanwhile, Audra, for all her composure, carried a heart burdened by decades of longing and regret. Her journey to this moment had been one of quiet observation, of watching from the shadows as Claire grew, knowing that every milestone was one she could never share, yet hoping, praying, that someday, she might be allowed to step forward. That day had come, and the intensity of it was more overwhelming than she had anticipated. Each word spoken, each glance exchanged with Victoria, seemed to carry the weight of years of secrecy and sacrifice. Yet Audra's resolve did not waver. She understood that this was her moment, her chance to finally reconcile her past with the life she had always dreamed of being part of, Claire's life. For Claire herself, the revelation was a tidal wave that swept her off her feet, leaving her disoriented, angry, and deeply curious all at once. She had always known her life was complex, layered with secrets, power struggles, and intense family drama, but nothing could have prepared her for the truth that the woman she had always seen as her mother was not, biologically, the woman who had given her life. Questions that had lingered in the recesses of her mind for years suddenly found urgent relevance. Why had she been given up? Who had known, and why had it been kept secret? What did this mean for her identity, for her relationships, and for her understanding of what family truly meant? As Claire grappled with the shock, she oscillated between moments of raw emotion and cold, analytical reflection. One minute, she wanted to flee, to escape the intensity of the confrontation, and the next, she wanted to dig deeper, to demand every detail, to understand everything about Audra's past, her motivations, and the life she had led in secret. The dynamic between the three women, Audra, Victoria, and Claire, was electric, charged with tension, curiosity, suspicion, and the faint glimmer of hope that perhaps, despite the deception and heartbreak, a new chapter could begin. Yet the path to reconciliation would be anything but simple. Victoria, struggling with her own feelings of displacement, was determined to protect Claire from being overwhelmed, but she also realized she could not control the emotional narrative forever. Audra's presence was permanent, and the questions, conversations, and confrontations were inevitable. What followed in the ensuing days was a whirlwind of emotion, conversation, and confrontation that left each character tested to their limits. Victoria's initial attempts to assert control were met with resistance, not overtly aggressive, but quietly firm, from both Claire and Audra, whose determination to establish a connection could not be ignored. Each conversation carried a mixture of tenderness and friction, as each woman navigated the delicate balance between honesty, authority, vulnerability, and love. Audra, ever the composed outsider, revealed more about the life she had led, the choices she had made, the sacrifices she had endured, and the silent suffering she had endured while remaining apart from Claire. Her stories painted a portrait of a woman whose love for her daughter had never waned, whose longing had never diminished, and whose patience and restraint had been an act of the purest devotion, albeit a painful one. Claire, listening to these revelations, found herself struggling to reconcile her feelings. She felt gratitude and compassion for Audra, yet she also experienced guilt for the anger and confusion that welled up from within her. She questioned herself constantly. Was she allowed to feel hurt? Could she embrace Audra without feeling disloyal to Victoria, the woman who had raised her, protected her, and shaped her into the woman she had become? These emotional conflicts played out in both private and public settings, as the three women navigated the delicate dance of disclosure, reconciliation, and boundary setting. The public dimension of this revelation added an extra layer of complexity. Word of Audra's claim spread rapidly throughout Genoa City, reaching friends, family, business rivals, and the ever-watchful media. Speculation ran rampant. Social media erupted with debates, gossip, and conjecture, while the Newman Enterprises offices became a hub of whispered conversations, strategic maneuvering, and subtle attempts to sway opinion. Victoria, acutely aware of the optics, had to navigate not only the personal implications of Audra's revelation but also the professional consequences. As the public face of Newman Enterprises, her response would shape not only her daughter's perception of family but also the perception of her colleagues, business partners, and adversaries. Audra, meanwhile, was prepared for scrutiny and judgment, knowing that her role in Claire's life would not be universally welcomed or understood. She had anticipated resistance, perhaps even hostility, but her desire to connect with her daughter outweighed any fear of confrontation. Over time, small steps toward understanding began to take shape. Conversations that started with tension slowly evolved into dialogue, with moments of genuine curiosity, empathy, and tentative trust. Audra shared stories of her own upbringing, the challenges she faced, and the life she had built away from Claire. Victoria, witnessing the vulnerability and sincerity of Audra's accounts, found herself softening, beginning to recognize that the woman before her was motivated by love, not malice. Claire, observing the tentative bridge forming between the two women, began to entertain the possibility that a new family dynamic could emerge, one that embraced both her adoptive mother and her biological mother in a delicate balance. Yet progress was uneven. Moments of connection were often punctuated by conflict, as the emotional stakes were extraordinarily high. Old wounds surfaced, unspoken insecurities emerged, and the psychological complexity of their relationships became increasingly evident. Each woman had to confront her own feelings of loss, betrayal, longing, and desire for belonging. Victoria wrestled with questions of identity and control. Claire grappled with loyalty, curiosity, and the fundamental question of what family truly meant. Audra faced the challenge of establishing a meaningful connection without overwhelming or alienating the daughter she had been separated from for so long. Meanwhile, the ripple effects extended beyond the immediate family. Friends, colleagues, and acquaintances became involved in the drama, offering support, judgment, or unsolicited opinions. The impact on Claire's romantic relationships, her career, and her social circles became increasingly apparent as the revelation continued to reverberate. As time passed, the initial shock gave way to reflection. Victoria began to reassess her own identity as a mother, realizing that while she had been Claire's primary caretaker, love and motherhood were more nuanced than she had ever imagined. Audra, gaining confidence in her ability to connect meaningfully, explored ways to integrate herself into Claire's life without disrupting the bonds already established. Claire, empowered by the knowledge of her biological heritage, started to redefine her sense of self, blending the lessons, love, and experiences she had received from Victoria with the newfound connection and understanding she gained from Audra. Their journey toward a redefined family was ongoing, filled with emotional highs and lows, missteps, and breakthroughs. Moments of anger and misunderstanding were followed by laughter, shared memories, and gestures of care that slowly knitted the three women together. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, new revelations, and fresh insights into the nature of love, identity, and forgiveness. The public intrigue surrounding the revelation continued to escalate. Media outlets vied for exclusive interviews, social media influencers dissected every interaction, and the citizens of Genoa City debated the merits, implications, and moral complexities of Audra's reappearance. Within this charged atmosphere, Victoria, Claire, and Audra had to navigate not only their personal emotions but also the external pressures, all while striving to maintain a sense of dignity, authenticity, and mutual respect. Significant moments punctuated their evolving relationship. Shared meals, private conversations, candid admissions of fear and hope, and small gestures of intimacy that hinted at trust and tentative acceptance. These moments, while seemingly minor, were monumental in the context of decades of secrecy, separation, and emotional distance. As they continued to explore the depths of their relationships, unexpected alliances emerged, old friendships were tested, and new bonds formed. Claire, discovering the resilience and compassion of both her mothers, found strength in the knowledge that family could take many forms and that love, while complicated, was not limited to a single narrative or experience. Victoria, acknowledging the complexity of motherhood, embraced the possibility of sharing her daughter's life in a broader, more inclusive way, while maintaining her integral role in Claire's upbringing. Audra, finally able to participate actively in her daughter's life, confronted her own fears of rejection, learning that patience, sincerity, and unwavering love could create space for connection even after decades of separation. Slowly but surely, the Newman family, and the women at its center, began to find equilibrium.